The Fibre and Foil podcast is brought to you by the Card Care Academy. On this episode of Fibre and Foil.
How I got into card restoration. It's a long journey for me. So I started out making pipes in high school.
So got back into Pokemon, started collecting, did do what everyone does, hopped on Whatnot, buying a whole bunch of slabs, that didn't really have any value.
With this one, it took me forever.
So the easiest way I think of a crease is I like to think of something called a memory plane. One of our scholars, PokeDRAS,
Yeah.
Lovebirds he did,
Yeah.
absolutely insane. Hey everyone, welcome to Fibre and Foil. I'm your host, Austin with Legendary Card Care. Joining me is my Habibi brother, Dougie with Dream Eater Card Care. Doug, I know we've been wanting to put a podcast together for some time now. I believe we've been bouncing it back for a couple of months. So really excited to be here with you and doing this. I know you and I talk extensively outside of this.
We do.
So I guess let's start with the kind of our backstories in card restoration, what got us into Pokemon. That way everyone can get to know us a little bit more than just our posts, right?
Yeah.
Doug, I know you have an extensive art background. Let's kind of start there.
Yeah, sure. So how I got into card restoration. It's a long journey for me. So I started out making pipes in high school, which is hilarious. But my art teacher was basically telling the class, Doug's the only one that's allowed to do this because he's actually trying. I then went to art school at Akron U. I live in Ohio here. And I have an art degree. I'm a ceramics major and a sculpture major and a ceramics minor. And I eventually got into art restoration, actually. I'm a certified welder. I now work as a weld QC. I'm quality control for welding and whatnot, but I worked for a while in doing sculptures, doing restoration on sculptures, stuff like that, paintings, and eventually I went to my parents' house to get my binder back of my old Pokemon cards, and a bunch of cards were missing from my two little brothers, and I didn't like that, so I had to start recollecting my cards. I couldn't afford crazy cards at this point. They're not $3 a pack anymore. 33 years old. And once I started collecting again, I was thinking to myself, I want these to look better. And some of these are all moldy, little black specks all over the place, little dents and stuff from taking them out of the playground all the time. And there goes my heat press. And I eventually started seeing some videos of Kurt stuff, some other channels, and I was like, how are they doing this? I'm going to figure this out. This seems like a super hard hobby, which I'm addicted to hard hobbies, as I'll probably just talk my butt off the whole podcast about. I make a lot of connections to my hobbies. I run a glass blowing studio now. I fix cards and I weld. That's my life right now. So I started figuring out how to clean cards, how to mix my own little concoctions, because I couldn't afford the Kurtz product at the time. I was just mixing a little bit of isopropyl alcohol with some distilled water and just figuring it out. Just watching what other people were doing, making little adjustments to kind of get out the things I was trying to get out, little dents and stuff, and buying things piece by piece. And eventually I figured it out. And eventually, I was posting on my sculpture and glass page, and the Bad Card Baddie and I started talking, and as we refer to him as Baddie, Take Me Back to Pallet Town is his handle on Instagram. Go check him out. And we were talking, and we were very like-minded, and we both wanted a hub, because getting into this with no blueprint for yourself, this is very teach yourself how to do this. Just like glass blowing, my first connection. I just remember when I first started blowing glass, there was no direction. I just had to figure everything out. So if I could make a space for everybody to communicate about what they're doing, their before and afters, how to do stuff, that's basically how the Card Care Academy was born. Is me and Batty and Kurt, we all were like, we need a hub, and we got together and we made that happen. So that's kind of how I got here in short.
Yeah. And, Doug's kind of being modest here, but some of his sculptures are absolutely phenomenal. Our editor Quan will make sure to include on the podcast for you guys. But it's absolutely insane, and just the transference of hobbies, I think, is kind of the biggest thing that Doug and I talk about most. Is growing up, I had a really bad speech impediment. I was tongue tied, and they didn't really find that out for some time. I think I was like in the third or fourth grade, but I wasn't able to talk and communicate effectively, so I was acting out at school, right? Which one does when they feel like they're not being understood. And my parents, if you continue to act out, you're not going to be able to get stuff. I'm like, oh, okay. So they offered to get me Pokemon packs when I would behave. So I started behaving more, of course.
Rules.
And then started getting a bunch of Pokemon cards and collecting and started making friends that way, because that was an easy way. Be like, oh, you got Pokemon cards? This was one of the few words I could say. And we
Aw.
started connecting and stuff like that, right? And it was back in 2024. I work as a nurse, and I was just working, a bunch. Burning myself out is what they call it in the healthcare field. And my wife was saying, if you get back into anything, Austin, what could you get back into? I'm like, you know what? I really miss Pokemon, right? So got back into Pokemon, started collecting, to do what everyone does, hopped on Whatnot, buying a whole bunch of slabs, that didn't really have any value, but but I thought they were cool. And then around January of 2025, I started saying, you know what? Like, I'm buying all this random stuff. I just need to focus on the cards that I really like, which is vintage. And of course, I started buying base set Charizards because I love Charizard. Started buying these Charizards, and at the time, the prices for Charizards were, around $450, $500. I was like, oh, dang, that's a lot of money for a card. So I started buying these Charizards, and I was like, and I started seeing these people pop up on Instagram that could fix cards. I'm like, okay, I can figure this out. Then started looking into Kurt's channel, started watching everything with Kurt, started watching everything with Rocket Collects. Started there, started kind of teaching myself, like you said. And I know I don't have an extensive art background. I mainly just painted, oil painting. But when I was doing that, I was like, wow, I can get these cards for cheaper, make them look nicer, and then keep them for myself in my binder, right? And then eventually started getting halfway decent at it. And then my friend's like, hey, you should join this Discord. I was like, oh yeah, send me the link. I'll join the Discord. And about early summer of 2025, I joined Card Care Academy. And that's where I've kind of met my second family, if you would, right? That's kind of how I feel about everybody.
Aw.
Is we try to, it's honestly, that's how I feel. Like, everyone there is just so cool. And I started seeing, Quan post stuff. I started seeing, Alex Bear posting stuff, and just so much talent in there. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like these people are doing insane things. And don't get me wrong, like I was okay, right? And I'm like, I need to get better. Not only for myself, because I want to get better, but just, I can't say I'm decent at card restoration, right? No one wants to be mediocre at something, I feel.
Yeah.
So I started pushing myself and started doing some bigger cards and started doing more extensive creases and projects and dents and surface cleanings, all the works. I remember I made it a point to myself. I was buying absolutely trash cards, and I wanted to work on a minimum of 20 cards a day. 20 cards a day I wanted to put my hands on, and at minimum make them look better by the end of the day. I did that for months and months and months and months, right? And then eventually I got decent enough, and I was fixing other people's cards, that my wife was like, hey, we're where you're doing other people's cards and stuff like that, it'd probably be a good idea to start up an LLC. I was like, yeah, you're right. So formed Legendary Card Care. And then I did my really big project when I opened up my company, the Gold Star Rayquaza, and did pretty decent at that. And then after that, just
Modest.
well, it was like my first big card. Like I've never did a card that was, over $5,000 at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's
it
always
scared the
scary to
crap out
me.
of me.
Yeah, I was gonna
Well,
say.
and it scares you, right? Like, and I remember the best advice I got was, don't be a wuss. You know what you're doing,
Yep.
you know? And I've kind of just carried that advice with me the whole entire time. And luckily I've had people like Batty and Quan and Alex and, Pokey Drass, just to name a few, just have kind of, not only they talk to me, right? Because they're my friends, but also just kind of push me to be better because I want to be better, right?
Mhm.
And that's the biggest thing I feel with card restoration is it's very easy to compare yourself to others. And the biggest thing is you see, like if I look at my stuff, from last year, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've improved so much, right? But if I compare my stuff to others, you're like, oh man, maybe I'm not doing the best, maybe I'm not doing that. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, right?
Oh
You
yeah.
can be you can be as good as you want in this. The only thing that prevents you from getting better is your own skill cap. And the way to get better with skills is just practice and repetition. And the more cards you practice on, the more that you do, it eventually just clicks. Like I promise you, one day it just clicks, and I'm sure you've had your epiphany, but one day it just clicks for you, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, this isn't that hard, right? You can make card restoration super complex. Like you really honestly can. You can do every single crazy method out there, or kind of like what Kurt's Card Care does is you just keep it simple. Just find something that's easily repeatable for you to your own skill set and needs and repeat that. That's all you need to do.
Yeah.
But kind of touching on that topic, Doug, with restoration and stuff, me and you talk a lot about card hierarchy difficulty, right? When it comes to stuff. And we see this a lot in the Discord where I think a lot of people kind of get discouraged because a lot of people will go, they're like, oh, I'm brand new. I just barely ordered my kit. And they buy a completely creased card.
Mhm.
And, it's like, well, yeah, you're going to get discouraged. That's a crease, that's one of the hardest things to do. And it's not for me saying it's hard just to say it's hard. It's just they are. Like creases are hard.
Oh yeah.
So I figured now to kind of be a good point to talk about card hierarchy. If you were to have someone that was brand new in card restoration, how would you kind of guide them?
You and I talk about running before you can walk a ton.
Absolutely.
And people hit walls. I still hit walls sometimes. You hit walls, like it just kind of happens, especially with creases. Sometimes they just don't move. And you're like, I'm doing everything the way I did on the last card with the crease that I fixed. And so to touch back on when I first started doing cards, obviously I made sure I knew how to clean stuff. I made sure not to get my microfiber cloth too wet and have humidity leak into the sides of the cards. Here and there I swelled the card because I was going too heavy. I was doing a bunch of stuff, and I think the biggest thing people need to learn is to mess up, is to buy some cards you just don't care about and just mess up. That's the best way to learn this craft is know what not to do and know when to stop. You got to know when to fold them, basically.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I
think
still have that problem.
I think my advice for people, kind of touching on that, is just learn how to clean a card first. Right? That's the number one thing you can do is just learn how to clean a card.
I did my whole binder. After I was done with my whole PC binder, I went to a card store. I bought 40 more cards, just pieces of crap, just super scratched up cards, and I just did those. And then I moved on to dents. And then after dents, I moved on to edge lifts. And then I introduced heat. I didn't just jump to heat like the first thing. That was back when the pens, the little heat pens were coming out. Show that, just to show it. Basically, I did so many things wrong with this thing. it has these like flat edges, and here and there I would be going on stuff and then dent the card while doing it. I
Yeah.
mean, people message me all the time like, "Hey, I was doing that thing I watched in your how-to videos, and I just crapped the bed." Why? I'm like, well, you went too hard. And then they'll be like, "Oh, well, it was my childhood Charizard. This is my fourth card I've restored." I was like, "Stop doing that. Please stop doing that. Don't do that. Never do that." I mean, these cards are so sentimental to people. You gotta practice first. It's one of those
Yeah.
things. I've been skateboarding. Sorry, one more. I'm adding hobbies as I go. I told you this was going to happen. But in skateboarding, you don't try and learn a tray flip first thing. You learn how to ollie. You learn how to kick and push first. You don't just hop on a board and say, "I'm going to drop in on a 9-foot bowl." You're going to get hurt. Sometimes you have to get hurt to learn what not to do. And that taught me
Yep.
on. And what you were saying earlier about once you get that skill set and you get that big card and you're like, "All right, I'm gonna try it, but it's just $5,000 right here raw, and it's like 12,000 as a 10, just throwing out numbers." It hurts more going slow than it does fast. Just kind of balls up and do it is basically the thing. Being scared is where you get hurt. So sometimes, when people watching this, when you get to that point where you've cleaned all your cards, your own cards, and you're finally to a point of, "All right, I think I could start taking on customers or like doing my friends' cards or buying a big card for myself that I want to restore and then flip." There's so many different ways you could go about this business. Just make sure you know what you're doing first and you stop making those mistakes. Make sure you make those mistakes first, and then get yourself to a point where you're out of that tall grass. You stop
Yeah,
getting
absolutely.
the game.
Yeah, like I know in the Discord, I tell people a bunch. Start with the surface cleanings. Learn how hard you can push on a card.
Yeah.
Then start working on edge lifts. Start doing dents. Get comfortable with those. Start slowly introducing creases because there's so many different types of creases and so many different types of things you can do with creases.
Mm-hmm.
And I did the exact same thing, right? Like I had a heat pen. I'm pretty decent with it. I'm no, wizard with the heat pen, but I'm pretty decent with it. I've been able to get creases out.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest thing with the heat pen is just learn the tool isn't going to make you more effective, right? It's the skill set. Because you can use a heat all day, but if you're not knowing how to coax a crease rather than sear a crease,
Mm-hmm.
that's the big difference. Is a lot of the cards now I do, I struggled with heat for a super long time, and I reached out to you. I was like, "Hey man, I want to get better at heat. What do you suggest?" And then you originally, had me get the Borosilicate glass spoon. Started using the Borosilicate glass spoon more, and I started like just learning how the front plastic layer of the card behaves when you introduce heat. And then my good friend Marsh, he, I told him I was struggling with heat, and he was very fortunate enough to tell me his method of heating up dental tools. I was like, "Okay, great. I'm going to heat up some dental tools with my torch, do it that way as well." And for me, it's absolutely. And that works great as well, right? But for me, I just don't like blowtorching things. So, we're going to be releasing a video about this, but I just use these little dental wax carvers that you buy. I set it super low, like I'm using 100 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit, and it takes a lot longer, right? Like sometimes I'm working something out for 10 minutes or more, but I'm able to get that crease flat and relaxed and get rid of that tension line that you see. That's all cards are. If you think about how card fibers, and we can go super detailed and get into the material aspect of cards.
We will.
But if you think about a card, right, it's the easiest analogy I've ever been told about cards, especially with creases. It's just like making your bed, right?
Yeah.
You have your bed, it's super wrinkled, right? And the only way to fix that wrinkle is to either push or shove a certain way to get it flat.
Mm-hmm.
That's all creases are.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally just a wrinkle in a bed. And then I know you have a great thing that you show to help people with creases is the tape
Trying to find
analogy.
it actually. Yeah, I have just like a little piece of cardboard and masking tape. And somebody was asking me on Discord about creases. They weren't understanding the difference between bubble creases and micro creases all the way, and why, when they introduce heat with the heat pen or the spoon, they're just kind of mashing it. And it was a classic case of, you know that it does take it away, but you don't know why it takes it away. And that's the
Yeah.
very important part with any really damage on a card, is why it goes away. You have to reverse the damage. You have to fix damage with damage sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyways, so if you're not understanding creases and the difference, a bubble crease, let's say you have a piece of cardboard and you put tape down and it doesn't adhere all the way and it has that little bubble. Boy, I wish I could find that right now. Anyways, next time you get a package, I mean, just look. You have those little creases. It translates the exact same. Just look on any given box with some tape on it, and you'll see that like sometimes that top layer gets pushed in a little bit and makes that little hump. Now, when that bubble crease pinches, it becomes a micro crease, and the only way to really get that out is to, like, for me at least, reverse that crease inward and then have it come up. I
Yep.
basically pop the dent out. I'm going to tell you a little horror story with heat real quick. The first big card, we're circling back just a little bit, but the first big card I ever worked on was a Legendary Collections Articuno that I got on the playground in 3rd grade. And I thought I was ready. I thought I was ready for it. I had a couple edge lifts, and at the time was using parchment underneath, parchment over top. It wasn't enough. I should have been using acetate. I really didn't. It wasn't the time of acetate at the time. And I scarred that card pretty good on the edges. And I cleaned a bunch of cards. I fixed a bunch of little stuff. And finally I was like, let's use heat. I'm ready. I had a couple practice cards, and I ruined a big card. So once again, just be careful with heat.
Yeah, I remember
Back to
my
creases.
first. Yeah,
Oh, go
like, my
ahead.
first big card I ruined was the Shadowless Charizard. Because at the time, I know a couple people off Whatnot, and he's like, "Hey, I'm wanting to sell this. I don't think it would run good on a dollar stream. Is this something you'd like to get?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, absolutely. Just let me know your price. Got it for a good price."
That's better.
And I was doing the exact same thing I do with everything, right? Using a heat pen, getting the crease out, and just went a little bit too long, and I melted the double zeros off my Shadowless Charizard, and it sucked, right? Luckily, it was my card. It sucked, absolutely. And from there, I didn't touch heat for such a long time. I got all my creases out without using heat. And you don't need heat to get creases out. You can absolutely get creases out without heat, right? It just makes it easier. It's one of those tools.
Yep.
Just a tool that kind of speeds up the process. There's many, many creases out that I don't use heat on just because A, they don't need them, or B, I'm able to have the card for a little bit longer. And I'm like, you don't need to use heat. Especially with back creases. Back creases, you got to figure back there, it's just straight paper. You don't have any plastic coating. So you mainly just need, kind of humidification, agitation. And, that's me doing back creases is what originally helped me think about making. I'm like, well, if we're just agitating the card, right? That's what originally kind of helped me come up with this guy, the fissure technique. Is all we're doing is agitating. Why not make something agitated quicker, right? And that's kind of where my philosophy for fissure came up. And then I started translating it to other types of creases, right? Bubble creases, unbroken creases, stuff like that. And it works. It doesn't get them out completely 100% of the time. Not, it doesn't, right? It's just one of those things that you use it and you have to use additional tools with it. It's just another skill set that you pick up.
Yeah.
I wish there was 100% way for, you or I or someone to say, you just need to do this one thing and this crease is going to come out. But currently there's not, right? So that's why it's important to, you can have as many tools as you want, but get familiar with each tool on your workbench and when to use it, when not to use it. And earlier you kind of touched on a really good topic is when to walk away. There's been a lot of cards that I've pushed probably a little too hard, and I've had to kind of reverse some of the things that I did.
Yeah, you
And
just
also
get
know,
yourself
like,
further in the weeds with denting and
yep.
just make it worse. Yeah.
And then sometimes, I get DMs from people where they're like, hey, can you fix this? Or would you fix this? And I look at the card, look at the scans, look at the images, look at the videos that they send me. And I just tell them, I could, absolutely. But the card's already like a 9, it's an 8. There's just really not much, there's too much risk for it to go down.
Mm-hmm.
And, and if some people are like, oh, yeah, I don't care if it grades lower, I don't care what grade it gets, I just want that, imperfection out, then yeah, absolutely send it to me. I'll get the imperfection out. But kind of knowing when not to touch the cards is a big deal as well. Because there's sometimes, I'll get people DMing me just cards that are littered with white, completely wrecked, damaged cards, and they'll have a crease in there, and they're like, hey, can you get this crease out? Or, can you get this dent out, get this edge imperfection out? I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely I could, but it's not going to change the condition that much, right?
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna turn a 1 into a 2, just so you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
essentially, right.
Mhm.
And kind of like when we talked about for the business is you can literally do whatever you want with this business, whether you want to restore your own personal cards, make them look nicer, great, you can do that as well. If you want to
Mhm.
buy lower cards, fix them up, sell them for a higher profit margin, you can do that because you have more of that gap, right? If I'm able to buy a card at MP or HP, fix it up and sell for near mint, gives me more room.
Mhm.
Or if you want to buy, 2, 3s, fix them up to, 8s, 9s, you can do that as well. Or if you want to kind of do what Doug and I do and a lot of our friends do in the CCA, is just opening up your own business and doing this full time, doing this as a part time thing, you're able to do that as well. And that's the great thing that I love about card restorations. There's so many different facets you can go down, or you can just go straight into product development, right? Like my good friend Shiny, he is great and amazing at restoring cards, and now he's kind of developing his own products as well. And there's so many different products out there. You just kind of have to find what works for you and know when to use them, when not to use them, what works great with this type of thing, what doesn't work great with this type of thing. But there's so many different products out there, and and that's kind of how we're getting with card restoration is people are coming out with all these amazing things and amazing techniques. Yeah, I know my goal and your goal is, we really want it to be kind of a open learning field in the CCA where if someone's like, "Hey, I did this to this card. This is my result. I want to share it with everybody. That way you guys can replicate the result." That's great, right?
Yeah,
That's kind
yeah.
of what we want. We need to advance the hobby.
I think the best
But
part about all that is when something does work out that somebody tried that's new and they get excited about it. Or if I tell them something simple and they do it and it works and they're excited about it, it makes my day every single time. I mean, it's the most exciting thing. It's literally like why
yeah,
I do this is like I work on cards part time and I weld and do all that stuff full time. But I look up to the people that are able to do it full time, like you and so many other people in the CCA at this point. Where's I even going with it? Sorry, this is hard.
no, you're good. No,
We'll cut it
talking
out. We'll
about
cut it out.
part time and full time.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I've thought about doing full time a couple times, but there's just something about it that I don't want to take too seriously. It
Yeah,
just remains fun, and I only take on a couple customers at a time. Some people are like, yeah, I have 100 cards to do, whereas like I keep it at like 30, 40 max. And
yeah,
you don't have to go super, super hard. And I just don't want it to feel like work. I want it to be fun, and it's remained that way, which is a super important part for me. Um,
yeah.
oh,
And that's kind of how. Well, and that's kind of how I got too. Is you and I talked about this, but November, December, I was doing a lot of cards. December, I did about 250 cards. And to me, it was just like, oh man, and to me, it just wasn't fun at that point.
mm-hmm.
And, I still love what I do. I still love fixing Pokemon cards. if there's a way I could do it for free, I would. Absolutely. Like if people could just buy what I need and I could do it that way, absolutely I would.
Hmm.
I just don't think there's a functional way to do that, unfortunately. But working on all those cards, I was like, oh man, like, I shouldn't dread coming to my desk and having multiple gold stars sitting on my desk, right?
Yeah, like
And so that's why I kind of,
I have to go work
well,
on
that's kind of why
$1,000 worth of other people's stuff. I mean, my wife was starting to notice definitely, like, I feel like you're getting a little bit stressed out. Like, we'll be on our way home from the grocery store and you'll be like, ah, I really got to work on that card. I can't just,
yeah,
like, go home and play video games. I really got to get this done for this person. She was like, maybe you should, like, take a step back. And for some people, that's okay. For some people, that's just how
yeah,
they feed their family. Actually, to touch on that real fast, I'm super proud of the fact with the Card Care Academy that like this has allowed people to like feed their family and like side
yeah,
hustle, like pay their
absolutely.
bills. That's another thing that I'm like, this is why I did this. Like this is
Yeah,
so cool that we can provide the information to get them just a little better and to get dents out a little easier. I mean, it's the coolest thing. So I will say, people that get discouraged that start this as well. I should have said this earlier, but I guess it ties in now. I've been having a lot of messages of, I did 1 or 2 rounds on this and I'm not really getting anywhere. Sometimes you got to keep doing it and just repeat and repeat. People get discouraged so fast when they want
yeah,
to start this business too, especially when they're like, I want to go full time with this or like do part time and take on customers, but I just did, 2 bubble beams and this didn't come out, which is just like a humidity vacuum basically that we do in case you're new, where you just spray one or 2 sprays on a pad, put the card in between in a sandwich with some plates and press it. And that humidity flows into the card and basically just exit the card. And with that pressure over and over again, it just softens and hardens, softens and hardens. And that's how you get dents out. It's one of the ways to
yeah,
skin a cat, at least. But I've been trying to tell people getting started with their businesses, just don't get discouraged, and you will get better, you will get faster, and you'll figure out a system, basically, of the way you work. And everybody works a little different. Me and Austin work completely different. Not
yeah,
completely, but like pretty different. I just came out with a
yeah,
video on my Instagram about hydro pumping, and all my friends were like, "You spray the pads how many times?" I get that card soft. I mean, I sometimes will spray those pads like 10, 12 times, whereas you spray it, what, like 6 times?
yeah,
Hmm. So also just remember there's different ways to skin a cat. You
yeah,
will develop your own system. You will develop your own hand at this. The card will talk to you. I know that the first couple videos I watched of Kurt's, that really helped me. I gotta turn that off. 1 second. Okay, we're back.
but
We're doing card care while we talk. But he said something super important, like let the card talk to you. If you think that it needs something, like to maybe rub it with a bone tool for like a little bit, or stop what you're doing, put in some clamps, or put it back in the humidor. There's going to be some different ways to get to the same result.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing that I try to tell people, for me at least, is I think everyone in their life has touched Play-Doh. Majority of people have touched Play-Doh.
Mm-hmm.
I try to get the card to feel like clay. Once you get it to feel like clay, everything moves, right?
Yep.
Whether that's creases, dents, edge lifts, it doesn't matter. It's going to move. Once you kind of learn how to get the card to clay and then learn how to properly dry the card from the clay state, you're okay. But like with dents, for instance, whether you're doing the bubble beam, which is essentially just a rebound effect, you swell the card, it resurfaces, kind of pulls, flood it with moisture, levels out the card. Whether you're doing that or you're doing a clamp, trying to resurface the card that way, you're essentially just trying to make the fibers rebound or work a certain way. And then with edge lifts, all you're doing is manipulating cardstock. You can get super complex with it if you'd like, but it's the biggest thing is just learning how the cardstock behaves. And that's kind of why it's important to go up the escalation ladder with the humidity. people will be like, I just hydro pump this card, but it has this one dent. And I'm just like, there's no need. You need to do the least amount of humidity possible to fix the
Yep.
card because it just saves yourself later.
Your risk to
I love the hydro pump, right? The hydro pump will fix the majority of everything 100% of the time. However, you also have to know how to properly dry a card. And the humidor, I would say, majority of my creases I get out are just in a humidor. You sit it in a humidor, do that. I do something weird called perpendicular clamping, but you just do that, and then a card will come out, and the crease will come out, and it's just learning when you get to that clay state, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And also pressure. I see that a lot in the Discord too. Is understanding how much pressure you put on a card. Because I can completely wreck a card by just pushing super hard and putting my stylus through the whole entire card. But kind of learning, like, hey, there's the whole entire perfection through destruction method of, hey, I'm gonna get this crease, it's kind of raised up essentially, right? And I'm gonna push it back inside of itself and create a valley, and then either use heat to smooth out that valley and get rid of all those wrinkles, or I'm just gonna let that dent pop back up, and when it resurfaces, the crease isn't gonna look as bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I see a lot of people that push to the point where they're making such a mountain on the backside that you're re-breaking, you're breaking the card fibers. And you may have an unbroken crease now, but when you go through and you're doing that across the whole entire crease and pushing it through the whole entire cardstock, you're making it into a broken crease, and it's always going to remain now. It's always going to be a line minimum,
Yeah, if you push
and
too
it may
hard,
not come out at all.
you misalign everything inside of the
Yeah.
card.
And so I tell people, like, I'm probably doing light to medium light pressure. I'm literally just denting that first layer of the card, and if I flip it reverse and I look at it, there's like a little tiny molehill.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay. And then, I'll massage it down and do that type of stuff. But
Yeah,
just learning
understanding the anatomy of the
yeah.
card is super important with that.
And, I get a lot of people, or I tell people, like, I think I'm ready for creases. I was like, great, spend some time and learn about card anatomy. Outside of restoring other people's cards, I buy different types of cardstock, very similar to Pokemon cardstock. And I'll purposely dent it, I'll crease it, I'll do all these different types of things to it just to practice. A big thing too, if you don't want to buy cardstock, is just like Kleenex boxes. I know it sounds silly, but just getting Kleenex boxes and learning how to work a crease out of a Kleenex box.
Yep, it comes back to the tape thing with the cardboard. Yeah, exactly. It's just find different ways to like relate. You have to relate to what you're doing, and that'll make you understand better. I was once again, another hobby. I was a snowboard instructor for like 5 or 6 years. I used to like do competitions and do the big jumps and stuff, and I used to teach people how to snowboard every winter. And I would use a lot of different metaphors to teach people. Like if you were to go straight down a hill, I would call it a falling line. And if you got a bowling ball and rolled it down that hill, the way the hill is set, that's where that bowling ball is going to go. And you have to treat your snowboard and traverse, the way the hill or the mountain is, situated. And just little stuff like that. I mean, like you control a snowboard with your front foot, and I would relate it as like a bicycle, and the front wheel does all the work. And that always really helped people. And the more it translates to every craft that you ever try. I have so many hobbies, and the best way for my ADD brain to comprehend it is to relate it to other stuff. And with card care, that definitely helped me. With the tape thing, with a tissue box, like you said, just different things like that. So yeah.
And then eventually, if you want to get fancy, they sell cheap holographic layers you can put on cards, right? There's so many people that they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so good at getting back creases out, but I'm struggling with front creases. I'm like, you just have to learn. You know the basics. Now you just kind of have to learn to get that plastic coat straight.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of our biggest thing. Going back to the CCA, is it's so cool to learn some of the, have some of these people that, because I originally started back as a student, and I am fortunate enough to work my way up to a scholar. But I remember being a student and just not, I thought I understood cards. I really did. And it wasn't until like I did a deep dive into understanding what makes a card, what a whole entire card composite is, and kind of learning the different ways of humidification, when to use, when not to use.
Different
And
anatomies,
then
like versus English.
yeah, and I just saw my skills eventually get better, and then just a constant repetition, whether it be the dummy cards or me being fortunate enough to take on clients' cards is just completely different, because I can get a base set Charizard I'm working on, and someone will send me a gold set, a gold star Charizard. I'm gonna work them completely different. That's just the card stocks are different. They feel different to me underneath my hand,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just gonna come out differently, because you gotta think like back in the day with WotC especially, is those things were thick, like they're super super thick, and you compare that to
I
like
hate
modern
these
cards.
sports cards. I'm not good at sports cards.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit my faults, and I've done a couple, and a couple I was very successful with, and then the other ones I was like, I don't like the feeling of this. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So to
Yeah.
segue actually into like Japanese cards and whatnot. So I just fixed a Masaki mark out of a Masaki Alakazam. It's posted on my
Oh yeah.
Instagram, and I think a big thing with that, you with big cards, you got to be so gentle. And going back to expensive cards we're going to work on. So with this one, I went low. It took me forever. I basically just kept introducing humidity via just like putting tiny little water droplets on it, and the card fibers in Japanese cardstock, from what I've become to feel, is it's like tighter almost, and the backs are so much harder to get dents and stuff like that out. For at least for me, maybe there's somebody out there that's just like Japanese easy. Everybody's different. If you're out there, I hate you. I hate you. You're a wizard, and I hate you. But whenever I introduce water droplets on big dents like this on the back of a Japanese card, it swells a lot faster for me. So I was just filling in that dent and then waiting maybe like 10 seconds or so. With English cards, I could let it sit a little bit longer, but you don't want to risk anything with these. So a couple seconds, dry it up, and I push through the dent a lot of the time to get my heavy dents out into a card mat. So you have like you're just going past the dent, but
Yep.
you don't want to crack the paint. That's the biggest issue with doing something like that. So you can't mound it that much and then you just press it again. Get it to dry, get it back to that one part, get it to a clay state, and just over and over and over again, just until that is resurfaced basically. And then once you get that like acute dent out, with a bubble beam, you can't really get an acute dent out. You have to make it more obtuse to then lift the rest of it. So once I kind of worked that dent out with putting water on there, pushing it past, kind of tooling it here and there to kind of obtuse that dent, I only did maybe like 2 bubble beams on that to get it the rest of the way, and just like nice and resurfaced. And then I pressed in some parchment. I think I gave it like 1 heat press just to like reset that thing back straight. I'll be the first to admit sometimes drying is my biggest issue. So when I'm
Yeah.
like going hard with humidity, using like a straw or just like a humidor, stuff like that, it's usually pretty easy to get a card back flat. When you're hydro pumping pretty heavy, or if you're adding a lot of moisture to just one part and putting it in the humidor over and over and over and over again, you're changing these fibers. I mean, it goes into a U over and over. You're messing with the fibers. So you have to figure out how to reset stuff as well. So that was a difficult fix, but that was one I was super proud of, and it actually got, pretty sure it got a good grade. So I'm looking for Masaki marks now for me. Like now
Yeah, there you go.
now that I know how to fix those Masaki marks. But yeah, I thought that was just like a cool thing to bring up between English cards, Japanese cards, modern cards. We both, I believe, collect a lot of vintage. So I like to
Yeah.
work on vintage. I don't know that much. Sad to say, everybody, but if you present me with some modern cards, I'm gonna be like, oh, cool, and not know what the heck it is half the time. I'm just like, oh yeah, Toastermon. That's cool. I know like I love working on Pokemon cards though. So like, I mean, I collect up to like e-readers, and if it just looks cool, I get it. I like the art. So
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, kind of talking about that is, Quan will pull up a Gold Star Charizard I did. So I got this card, and this was right when I was getting pretty okay with heat, but it had this really nasty corner crease. And with the corner creases, especially, sometimes it's just like a pain to get out. Like,
Yeah, I
you
see
know,
those a lot. Like this same kind of damage.
yeah. And it's just such a pain to get out. And so, what I like to do is I try to get as much as the crease away as possible in the humidor, right?
Just relax it.
So yeah, just relax it. I'm just trying to get those ridges and everything more plain, if you would. So
Hmm.
the easiest way I think of a crease is I like to think of something called a memory plane. And you got to figure some of these memory planes are 20, 25 years old on some of these cards, and people are wanting us to fix it in
Isn't that a
a
crazy
couple
thing to think
weeks.
about?
Yeah, I
We're as
know.
old as us at this point.
You know?
Sometimes older than
And
the
so,
people
like,
I'm talking to on Discord. I'm like, this is older
yeah,
than you, pal.
yeah, and like, so I like to think of a crease as, or any type of damage really, but creases especially, is you have this set memory plane, and your whole entire job is to have that card remember its factory state. So when you're working a crease or a dent or whatever, but creases especially, I like, I could bust out a crease in one session. I absolutely could. I know I could.
Hmm.
However, I like to do more of a gentle nudge approach. So like I'll humidor a card, I'll fissure that whole entire area just to get those fibers loose. Just kind
Yeah,
of
let's
open and expand the
break it up,
fibers.
sort of. Yeah.
And then I'll go through with my leather stylus tool and I'll start just guiding everything back into place. And if they're not guiding really nice, I like to use a silicone tipped brush. And it kind of goes back to the bed analogy, but you use these silicone tipped brushes, just these little guys. I like to get the really firm tips and I start shoving it like a rug, right? I start from where the crease shadows, and you guys will know this when you look at a card, is you have a really dark side on the crease and you have a light side on the crease. The dark side of the crease is where the fibers are kind of like folded over. So you need to push those back. And so I'll start guiding it with a silicone tipped brush, kind of get a planer, kind of get like a nice flat plain surface. And after that, I'll do perpendicular clamping. With corners, it's a little bit odd with the perpendicular. You just have to know, like, you have that corner essentially, right? So you need a clamp here, 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 and here. Because when that card dries, creases like to shrink back, right? And that's how you
Yeah,
get crease
shrinkage is
rebound.
huge. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so when I clamp, I'm holding my changes essentially, right? I'm trying to prevent that crease shrink. So when you clamp perpendicularly, it helps dry it evenly so that way it doesn't shrink back into place.
Yeah.
And with the corner creases, I just put 4-inch bar clamps, not hard, just till the plates are taut. And I just do that. And then eventually, when I feel it's needed, I'll just do my dental wax carving tool and I'll get rid of all the plastic shadows on the card
That's a good way
and
to put
make those
that.
creases go
Yeah.
away. Like I said, it's really not hard, right? It's just simplifying things so it suits your mind.
Hmm.
But that's
Yeah, it
kind of how
doesn't
I
have
got
to
that
be
Gold
rocket
Star
science.
Charizard out.
Yeah.
It's, we can, it's like I probably use on a daily basis 4 or 5 tools. I use my leather stylus, I use my silicone tipped brush, I use a massager, and I'll use a bone tool.
Mm-hmm.
And every now and then I'll use a crochet hook, the smallest available commercial size you can buy, just so I can get really deep in that crease when I'm pushing it and trying to create that either dent or try to undo that memory plane and teach it back to factory. And that really helps as well. But, some people message me, they're like, I wasn't able to get this crease out, and they're using, and you don't need to use fine tools, right? This is how I do things. But people use like these giant ball clay tools, which work really well, and they're using something that's like triple, double the size of the crease.
Yeah, they're
I'm
just
like, well, you're
mashing it
working that
all
whole entire, yeah, I'm like, you're working that whole entire area, not just a crease. So, but yeah, it's kind of goes back to what we talk about is you can make this whatever you want. I'm not some sort of wizard. I'm not some sort of magician.
Oh yeah, right.
It's just, yeah, I'm
You're
not.
lying.
But a lot of it's just repetition, right? Like just repetition and practice, and you can get as good as you possibly want in this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You set the skill cap with this, and you set how you want this to run. And I think the biggest mentality shift I had was I can't fail at this, right? When my daughter was born, I wanted to be there home with my wife to help with our baby. So I did this full time, and I just told myself, like, Austin, you can't fail at this. You need to support your wife, you need to support your new baby at home. So I just adopted that mentality. Whatever card I got in, I was going to fix, just based upon the fact that I had a whole entire family to feed, and I had people who were looking up to me to support them. And I'm super grateful to everyone that sends me cards still, because I'm able to take care of who I love most, right? I'm able to take care of my wife. I'm able to take care of our baby.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to do everything simply based on the fact of Pokemon cards. Like I remember when
Yeah.
I started my LLC, I was talking to my mom about it, and I was like, Mom, you won't believe, I started my company. And she was like, who knew Pokemon cards, the things that you grew up loving, would be able to take care of your bills, take care of food, all this other type of thing. Like one of my, memories I remember is when my little sister was born, me playing Pokemon Ruby, right? Having like a level 95 Swampert because I wasn't that good at reading back then because I didn't know how to get Surf. But, playing with her and holding her and playing Pokemon Ruby, it's just cool how all this thing just comes full circle, right? Like
Yeah.
you need to be passionate about what you do, and you can tell, like, the people I talk to, one of the things I like to hear a lot is, man, thank you so much for caring and having a passion for what you do, because they can tell, right? Everyone can tell.
Yeah. I'm still
And don't get me wrong,
my childhood with this.
yeah, and like, don't get me wrong, it's nice to make money with this. You can make as much money as you want, but you got to have a passion for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can tell in your work, it just makes you get better if you're passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you're doing this to make money or flip cards or just doing it to fix your own childhood collection.
Yeah. I do want to add, you should be happy with just like a reduction. Me and Austin, we're perfectionists, and sometimes that kind of works against us because we get really bummed out when we can't fix something like all the way. We'll be messaging each other and just like, why am I not perfect at this? I mean, that's why I would like to think that I'm a good glassblower. It's why I'm a fantastic welder. I can wag it around about that. I'm good at welding because if I weld this far into something and it's not perfect and I have this much to go, I'm stopping and I'm grinding that out, and it takes like an hour, and it sucks. But that's the mentality that you kind of have to go into this with, is just want to do super good, but be happy. It's been helping me a lot to just be happy with a big major reduction. You don't have to get the big ballers in this industry, like they're not getting stuff 100% out 100% of the time. I'm not, Marsh isn't, Cypher's not, Wizardry, all these people that you see that are your card heroes, they're not fixing everything 100% every single time. you see
Yeah.
the ones that they did fix 100%, that they're like, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to post this one. That's what you're seeing. And you just have to keep that scope in your head of like, you are good at this. It's just keep your expectations reasonable. And I tell my customers, keep your expectations reasonable. If you send me something that's like a PSA 4 and it's creased out, be happy if it reaches a 5. Because I hear horror stories all the time from card restores. Be nice to card restores if you're a customer. Be nice. They tried super hard. I guarantee you they did. But if something isn't 100% fixed and you're kind of bummed out, just know that they probably spent like 3 weeks trying to get that out for you. I mean, there's students that we see in the Discord that are impressing me so much. There's so many names that I'm just like, dude, we're raising feral animals. Straight.
We are, and that's kind of the funny thing is, we see a lot of before and afters in our Discord. It's flooded with before and afters, and one of the funny things is, I send you this too, is like, there's some card fixes that you just look at and you're like, oh my God, that's just like, like stuff like that. And like one of the ones that I saw recently was one of our scholars, Pokey D-Ras.
Yeah.
His Lovebirds he did, like,
yeah.
Absolutely insane.
Pull it up.
And yep, there we go. But yeah, it was absolutely insane. But he had this crease on his Lovebird, this little micro crease. And he got the crease completely out. And not only did he get the crease completely out, it graded a PSA new Cert 10, which is just wild to me.
Yeah, he was probably running
absolutely
around the
insane.
House just like, yeah, not even his card. But I'm certain that he was at home just like, fuck it, hell yeah. Like, it excites us more than anything for somebody to get a 10 on something like this. I mean, you can see that it starts like right above the 2, and it's nothing major. And I will say, while modern cards are a little bit easier to fix, just because they're just made better, the anatomy of the card is just better. It's still with that texture. I mean, that's so impressive that he was able to work around that texture and only press what you were saying. He didn't mash it. He pressed in only the crease, and then he raised it up, and now it's perfect.
Yeah. And, I think it's good, too, is, me and you have different approaches, like we've said. But if you were to get this card on your bench, how would you go about fixing this card?
You would have to talk to me, of course. But so I make a tool going back to, there's so many different things you could do in this industry. I started developing, because I'm a glass blower, glass tools that I made that spoon that you showed a little earlier. And when Marsh started showing how to get creases out with little dental tools, I was like, I can add to that. When you heat it up, metal has not as good of a heat retention as borosilicate glass does. So I started heating up. I have kind of an example here. I sold all the ones, thankfully, that I've made, but sometimes I just use scrap rods and stuff because I'm a degenerate, and that's how most glass blowers are. We're just little degenerates. And I have just like a little piece of glass that was from some fume prep I was making, and I'll heat up the glass and just slowly just kind of like peck it in. I kind of like in a forward 45 angle, like a sweeping motion almost, and just kind of like tap it in. So I'm not drilling super hard in. I have a better control of how far I'm going in, and I have to stop and like reheat it. I mean, I tell people how I get creases out, and I sell this tool, and people will be like, hey, it's taken me a long time. I'm like, yeah, it takes a long time. This isn't easy. But I would, get my glass hot. I would kind of start to poke it in, and then I would get my spoon. Mine's in color right now. And I would just kind of like feather that out. I would make that I would hydro pump it again, make it clay. It was clay to begin with my heavy hydro pumps, and I would just kind of feather that out, with the spoon and like more heat, and just kind of be super careful, take my time, and just kind of try and pull that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then press it and try and get it flat again and dry the card. I mean, like we were saying earlier, it's as hard as you're going to make this. You can reinvent the wheel over and over and over again. And one thing that you really taught me one time, I was struggling with just a dent, just a little peck dent. It was just a little bleh on a Pikachu. And I was trying to reinvent the wheel and try to get real soft and stuff, and it just wasn't coming out. And we just got to go back to the basics. And I ended up just putting a drop of water on there, letting it sit, drying it off, and then I put it in some clamps. I put in some plates with like a screw down clamp, which would be, one of these. And I just put it right where that damage was, and it was soft enough just in that one spot to just kind of even out and then just come back up. It swells a little bit in the plate, and I just replaned it. I mean, and it's as simple as that. Thanks for that tip, by the way. It's like something that like I knew how to do, and I've done it a million times, and then you start thinking too hard about stuff, and that's that wall that we're talking about. Sometimes you'll hit that wall, and you have to kind of work yourself out off of that wall. It's people message me all the time like, I swear I'm good at this, but it's just not working. I'm like, yeah, you hit the wall. It's the wall, and you have to, scale back sometimes. Scale back. Stop reinventing the wheel when you don't have to, and scale back.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the easiest thing, and with modern, I get modern in. It's not, I'm not saying I don't do modern.
Yeah,
I just don't do a
get
whole
like
lot
2
of
out
modern,
of 20.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I primarily do WotC 3 series, but if I was to get those lovebirds in, what I do is like I said, exact same process essentially. Try to get it as much out in a humidor. And what's nice about those weird like micro creases on the edge is, I talked to you about this a while back, is I just get these curved acrylic. I lay the card and I stretch out that card when it's humidified, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I work it on that curved acrylic plate to kind of teach those fibers to go back.
Yeah.
And every now and then I'll
Yeah.
dry it in a curve. I'll dry it in a curve for a little bit just so it helps stretch, and anyone can get a warp out. It's not hard to get a warp out. So if the card warps in those acrylic plates, the curved acrylic, it does what it does.
Yeah.
I'd rather make a card straight than get a crease out,
Mm-hmm.
But doing that, I've noticed that just helps smooth that whole entire layer out so effectively.
Yeah.
Especially when you get those huge creases that are, over a quarter length of the card. I'm going to put it on some curved acrylic. I'm going to work it on the curved acrylic. And I'm going to get the crease to undo that tension line and spread out. That's all you're doing is undoing tension.
Yeah, yeah.
And to me, that's the kind of approach I would have taken with those lovebirds. Is I would have humidored it, worked on the curved acrylic, set it in a curved acrylic for a little bit, recheck, right? Rinse and repeat. And then eventually, if I got to a hydro pump, with modern, I'm really weird. I especially like to use these. I got them these because I think it's hilarious when I get my workstation, right? These bright pink EVA foam. And I like to do all my hydro pumps in EVA foam.
Mm-hmm.
Main reason being is if there's not a dent or anything like that, I'm not using Castman, right? Castman I'm using for dents and warps. If I'm doing a crease, I'm using EVA foam because the EVA foam is non-porous, so everything sits there and it forces so much hydration into that card that you're gonna get to a clay state quicker, right?
Yeah. You can hydro pump for like 2 hours rather than like over.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. Like I can work the card an hour, maybe 90 minutes versus having to wait.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll do that, work the card, and then do the perpendicular clamps if it's still like kind of there, essentially gone. And then most times I'm getting a crease out. That's if I was to get that card, that's what I would have done.
See, there's different ways to skin a cat. I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have curved plates. I mean, that blows my mind. Like, I
do the curved plates, and then I do the curved plates, and then luckily Quan was really nice. I kind of told him my concept, and he 3D printed this for me. It holds the card. I work it on a curve. Exact same premise.
Quan's the man. We've
I agree.
luckily have a team of people for this podcast that are so talented as far as like card restoration. Quan's the man. I can't tell you his nickname right now, but like he has plenty of nicknames. Just messing with you, buddy.
But yeah, I mean, we're gonna be doing the podcast 2 times a month for you guys. Doug and I will get on here, and this is mainly just an intro episode that we guys can kind of get to know us, get to know a little bit about who we are, what we try to do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and
Try
but we're gonna
it.
do this twice a month. But we're gonna do this twice a month for everyone watching, and I really want to thank you. Literally, like, you know, I've said this a couple times, but I am so grateful for you guys. I would not, you know, when my daughter was born, I would not have been able to take care of bills and stuff like that and be home with my wife if it wasn't for card restoration.
Same.
So I want to, you know, I just want to thank everyone who has sent me cards or anyone who's thinking about sending me cards. You know, there's some times where, you know, you get a little emotional, right? You're like, oh my gosh, like I have this huge group of people. Like so many of my clients sent me baby stuff when my daughter was born just because they wanted to help out. You know, and it's
I have the coolest.
like,
I somehow have the coolest customers. I just like
yeah,
throw that
just
out.
wild to me. Like, you know, and so I really am just so eternally grateful for everyone, not only my clients, but everyone in the Card Care Academy. Like I tell you, you guys are my family, right? It just, that's how it feels to me. Like so many of you guys, whether I'm struggling or, you know, I'm just going through life, right? Because there's life outside of card restoration. Surprising enough for some of the clients out there.
Yeah, and you and I have lived a life.
Yeah, but just having all these people to talk to, you know, it just makes me so grateful. Is we have such a good community, and that's kind of what we want to continue to do, is just build up this great community that we have a solid foundation for. And we figured, you know, Doug and I just talking about this, because we get DM'd so much about, you know, how do you guys know how to fix this or this and this? And we really want to provide this educational kind of half jokingly podcast. That way you guys can listen to this and watch it and have fun along with us as we do things.
Yeah, and we'll get more comfortable as we go each episode. I'm a little bit of a weirdo. We both are super ADD, so sorry about that. But you know, to close out, I guess, same here. I'm so grateful for this. I'm super grateful that Baddie pushed me into putting myself into like a public space with my restoration. It's not that I was embarrassed by it. I was just like, I don't know, is this good enough? And he was like, dude, I can tell that you like understand the card more than most people. Like you just picked this up and like went with it because once again, I can relate to stuff and blah, blah, blah. But I just had a sale of a spoon and a B-drill tool. It's what I call the little pokers, B-drill tool. And I sold it to a restorationist that is an ex-Green Beret. And he was like, yeah, I just want, you know, those two tools. And we talked for a little while about it. And he ended up sending me more money. I will never take, you know, more anything from people. I don't expect anything out of anybody. I do this for the love of the game. And it makes me kind of emotional thinking about this. He sent me like a tip basically and was like, hey, listen, I want you to have this. I want this to go back into card restoration. I have total PTSD. I took an IUD or a bomb. IED. IUD is different. I took an IED. I have, you know, a little PTSD from stuff, and I was a Green Beret. I served the country, blah, blah, blah. And I talked to my therapist, and I've been doing Pokemon cards, and this has been like the thing that has like calmed me down. I made a bunch of friends online, and like this has been like probably the most helpful thing I could have possibly done with my time. And my therapist is like super proud of me. I mean, this is an outlet for people beyond just like, I need a hobby. I mean, just to learn that from that one guy was like such a cool, like, we're doing it. We're doing something, you know, like we're making a difference. So I just want to say, like, I want to hear your stories like that. I want to know that like you are feeding your family and this is like fun for you. So however that may come, thank you. And our episodes are going to get more in depth, and I hope everybody just walks away learning something from this. That's our goal, is just to educate
Absolutely.
for the love of the game. So thanks for tuning in.